Karen believed the royal guards were merely part of a tourist display until she deliberately blocked their path with a smirk. Sure, they would simply avoid her. However, when the guards advanced immediately without delay, she quickly discovered that long-standing tradition and strict discipline do not yield to entitlement. Here is the account of what happened. But before we continue, subscribe to the channel if you respect the royal guards. The sharp clack of expensive heels on old cobblestones announced the arrival of Alice Hargreaves as she rounded the corner of Buckingham Palace's eastern gate. Her carefully styled blonde hair and trendy luxury sportswear marked her as someone who saw herself as superior to the average visitor. Tourists had gathered to watch the changing of the guard. "Excuse me," she snapped, pushing past an elderly couple who had been waiting patiently for their turn to take photographs. "Some of us have places to be," she added, her designer handbag swinging carelessly so near a child that the youngster had to duck behind his mother. "The line starts back there, madam," a palace attendant said politely, gesturing toward the orderly queue of visitors. Alice's perfectly manicured hand cut through the air as she dismissed his words before they could fully register. "Do you know who I am? I'm not queuing like some ordinary tourist. I have a lunch booking at the Ritz in 40 minutes. The attendant maintained his calm, explaining, "I'm sorry, madam, but for security reasons, all visitors must follow the rules." Alice laughed sharply, her tone mocking, as she waved a dismissive hand toward the palace gates. "This whole thing is nothing but a tourist trap. I'm just here to take a quick photo for my—" She paused, as if reminding herself that she was far too refined for social media. At that moment, a young family from Australia tried to squeeze past her, with excited children pointing at the royal guards in the distance. Alice planted herself firmly in their way. "I'm not finished here," she declared, as if the whole courtyard were her personal photo studio. "Please, miss, the children have been waiting all morning," the father of the family began, only to be interrupted. "Well, they can wait a bit longer, can't they?" Alice retorted condescendingly. "Honestly, people these days have no idea about proper manners." The irony in her remark went unnoticed by everyone but herself. In the distance, the first notes of ceremonial music floated across the palace grounds. The changing of the guard was about to start, yet Alice had already decided that centuries of tradition should bend to her timetable. Little did she know, she was about to learn a very different lesson about respect, one that would leave a mark far more lasting than any photograph. As the ceremonial music grew louder, the tourists began moving to get a better view, their cameras at the ready to capture the time-honored tradition. Meanwhile, Alice stayed fixed in her chosen spot, now directly in the path where the guards would soon march. "Madam," said a retired serviceman named Gordon, stepping forward. His blazer was adorned with campaign medals that spoke of genuine service. "You need to step back. The guards will be coming through here shortly." "Oh, please," Alice scoffed, rolling her eyes as she adjusted her designer sunglasses. "They can walk around me. I'm not moving until I get my perfect shot." She pulled out her phone and held it at different angles, completely ignoring the growing concern around her. Gordon's weathered face tightened as he replied, "These aren't actors, madam. They are active duty soldiers performing their sworn duty. The route they march on isn't just a tradition. It is their assigned path, given by orders." Alice's laugh was sharp enough to make several children flinch. Orders to march in funny hats and stand still like statues? "Please." She waved a dismissive hand at his medals. "I suppose you used to play dress-up too?" A murmur of disapproval passed through the crowd. Gordon's companion, a former serviceman named Martin, put a steady hand on his friend's shoulder. "Save your breath, Gordon. Some lessons have to be learnt the hard way." In the distance, the guards' measured footsteps began to approach with rhythmic precision. Leading the unit was Guard Liam Baxter, whose perfect bearing and clear dedication could be seen even from afar. There was something in his presence that made most tourists instinctively step back, as if they recognized the real military experience hidden beneath the ceremonial uniform. A palace security officer then called out in an urgent tone, "Last warning. Clear the path immediately or you will be removed by force. The guards will not stop or change their route." "For heaven's sake!" Alice's voice rose, attracting even more attention. "This is a public space. I pay my taxes, and so does my husband, and I have every right to stand where I please." She turned to address the crowd, expecting support. "This is absurd. They're just guards at a tourist attraction. What, are they going to walk right through me?" As the marching grew closer, Liam Baxter's unit rounded the corner. Their scarlet uniforms stood out sharply against the grey stones of the palace. Their disciplined formation and steady focus made it clear that this was no tourist show. These were soldiers carrying out their duty. "Please," a mother with 2 small children pleaded. "You're going to get hurt. They can't change their course." Alice's response was to plant her feet even more firmly and raise her phone higher. "Then they'd better learn some customer service skills. I'm not moving for anyone in a costume, no matter how fancy their little hats are." The drums grew louder, and the sound of marching became even more distinct. The crowd pulled back, leaving Alice isolated in a small space that would soon be occupied by the advancing guards. Gordon shook his head slowly. He had seen this kind of entitled behavior before and knew exactly how it would end. Liam Baxter's experienced eyes had already noticed the obstruction in their path, but his steady step and the formation's order remained unchanged. Their march continued, as inevitable as the traditions they represented, closing the gap between ceremony and consequence. "This is your final warning. Clear the path or you will be forcibly removed," the security officer repeated with urgency. "Try it," Alice retorted defiantly, her stance growing bolder with every passing second. "I'd love to see you explain that to my lawyer." She raised her phone even higher, unaware that she was about to become an example of disrespect that would be remembered far more than any photo she hoped to capture. The gap between Guard Baxter's unit and Alice had narrowed to only a few yards, yet she remained fixed in place, phone held aloft with stubborn determination. The steady thud of their boots on the ancient stones seemed to make the air vibrate with authority. "Make way for the Queen's Guard!" A clear command rang out across the courtyard. Still, Alice stood her ground, a smirk on her lips as she watched the approaching formation through her phone screen. "Last chance!" someone in the crowd called. "They're not going to stop." "Oh, please!" Alice retorted without lowering her phone. "This isn't some military base. This is a tourist spot, and I'm a paying visitor." Then she raised her voice, addressing the approaching guards. "You lot work for us, remember? It's time you learned some basic customer care." The collision that followed was precise and controlled, yet firm enough to send Alice tumbling aside. Guard Baxter's shoulder, moved with military precision, struck her just hard enough to remove her from the formation's path. Her designer sunglasses flew off in one direction, her phone in another, as she landed unceremoniously on the cobblestones. Fate was not finished teaching its lesson, for as the formation continued their unyielding march, Guard Baxter's boot landed squarely on Alice's outstretched hand, the one she had raised to break her fall. The impact was not cruel or deliberate. It was simply the inevitable result of an immovable force meeting an object that refused to move. Alice's scream of anger and pain shattered the ceremonial atmosphere. "You broke my hand!" she cried, scrambling to her knees and clutching her injured hand to her chest. "Did everyone see that?" "He attacked me!" she shouted, accusing the guards. But the soldiers marched on in their perfect formation, their discipline unbroken. Guard Baxter's eyes remained fixed straight ahead, his stance unchanged, the only evidence of the incident being a small scuff on his otherwise immaculate boot. "How dare you!" Alice managed to cry out as she struggled to stand. Her designer outfit now bore marks from the hard cobblestones. "Stop right now! I'm talking to you!" Her voice rose to a shriek as the formation continued their precise march, completely ignoring her. "Do you know who my husband is? I'll have your job for this." Gordon, the retired serviceman who had warned her earlier, stepped forward to offer her a steadying hand, which she angrily brushed away. "Don't touch me! I want the police! I want names! I want badges!" Her face flushed an alarming shade of red that even matched the color of the guards' uniforms. "That man attacked me! He used too much force!" A palace security officer approached, his tone professional and neutral, despite having witnessed her ignore several warnings. "Madam, you were told repeatedly to clear the path. The Queen's Guard are authorized to remove any obstacles in their designated route." "Obstacle? I'm a paying visitor," Alice shouted, pointing at Guard Baxter's retreating form. "He stomped on my hand. I demand he is suspended immediately." A small crowd had gathered around her, though not with the sympathy she expected. Several tourists had recorded the entire incident on their phones, shaking their heads at her behavior. Gordon stood nearby, his face calm and professional, clearly unsurprised by the outcome. "I want his name," Alice continued, her voice echoing off the palace walls. "James? No, wait. What's his name?" Guard Baxter's new name, as it turned out, was already well known among those who appreciated military discipline. "Fine, I'll remember it," she declared bitterly. "My husband's lawyers will ensure he never works in uniform again. I'll own this palace by the time we're done." By now, the guard formation had reached their destination and executed a perfect turn. Guard Baxter now stood at his new post with his discipline intact, unshaken by the minor disturbance behind him. "Madam," the security officer tried once more, "if you would like to file a formal complaint, we can help. But please understand that interfering with the Queen's Guard during their duties is a criminal offense." Alice's voice rose even higher. "I am a taxpayer! That man," she pointed accusingly at Guard Baxter, "is a menace. He should be in prison, not playing soldier at a tourist spot." Gordon and Martin exchanged looks. They had seen this kind of entitled behavior before, where civilian arrogance clashed with military discipline, always ending the same way. Soon, the police arrived. A female officer, P.C. Daniels, stepped forward with a notepad. "Madam, I'm P.C. Daniels. Could you please lower your voice and explain what happened?" Alice's laugh was almost hysterical as she replied, "I'll tell you exactly what happened. Your precious guard attacked an innocent woman. He body-checked me to the ground and then stomped on my hand. I want him arrested immediately." Meanwhile, a male officer, P.C. Johnson, was speaking with other witnesses. Gordon, Martin, and several tourists provided statements that told a very different story from Alice's version. One officer, P.C. Stevens, stated, "Multiple witnesses said you were warned several times to clear the ceremonial path." "This isn't a military zone, it's a tourist attraction. I paid good money to visit this overrated palace, and that man—" Alice fumed, gesturing angrily at Guard Baxter. "He thinks he can attack me because of some ridiculous tradition." Her hand trembled as she fumbled with her phone, her injured hand shaking with anger. "I've got the best lawyers in London on speed dial. When the media hears about this, guard attacks on innocent tourists will be all over the news." P.C. Johnson then noted, "Mrs. Hargreaves, according to the witness statements, you were given no less than 6 warnings to clear the path. The guard's actions were completely in line with the established protocol for removing obstacles during ceremonial duties." Alice's face flushed even deeper. "I am not an obstacle, I am a paying visitor, and stop calling it ceremonial duties like it's just a fancy job. They're just soldiers in ridiculous hats," Gordon interjected, his voice carrying the weight of his own military service. "They are soldiers, madam. Active-duty military personnel following orders. The ceremonial side does not change that." Alice snapped back. "Then why don't you go and play dress-up with them if you like it so much?" She turned to the officers again, her voice rising. "Are you going to arrest him or not?" PC Stevens replied in a calm tone. "Madam, based on the witness statements and your own admission of refusing to clear a designated military route, we will not be arresting Guard Baxter. However, we do need to discuss your actions today." "My actions? I was assaulted. Look at my hand and these clothes," she cried, gesturing to the dirt marks on her expensive outfit. "This outfit costs more than what that guard makes in a month. I demand compensation. I demand justice." A small crowd of tourists watched in respectful silence, while some children hid behind their parents. Gordon and Martin stood nearby, their presence a quiet reminder of real military authority behind the ceremonial facade. "This isn't over," Alice declared, pointing her phone at Guard Baxter's still form. "You hear me? I'm going to ensure everyone knows what sort of thugs are guarding this place." She turned back to the officers. "I want his full name, his service number, and the contact details of his commanding officer immediately." PC Johnson cleared his throat. "Madam, if you wish to file a formal complaint, we can guide you to the proper channels. However, I must inform you that interfering with the Queen's Guard in the performance of their duties is a criminal offence." "Criminal offence? The only criminal here is that uniformed bully," Alice shouted. "And if you won't arrest him, my husband's lawyers will handle it. We'll see how tough he looks when he's in court." At that moment, the sound of boots on stone announced the arrival of Guard Captain Evans. His bearing carried the unmistakable authority of a career soldier, and the polished brass of his insignia shone in the afternoon sun. Surveying the scene, he took in Alice's dishevelled state and the calm professionalism of the police officers. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked quietly, yet with authority that made everyone, except Alice, stand a bit taller. Finally, Alice thrust herself forward, clutching her injured hand dramatically against her chest. "Someone in charge! I demand the immediate arrest of Guard Baxter for assault and battery. He attacked me without any provocation." Captain Evans cut through her tirade with precise military calm. "I have been fully briefed on the situation. My guard acted entirely within protocol when you refused to clear a designated military route, despite several warnings." "But he body-checked me and stomped on my hand. What kind of protocol is that?" Alice demanded. The captain's expression remained calm. "The Queen's Guard are active duty soldiers operating under strict orders. They are authorized to remove any obstacles in their path with the level of force that is both calculated and practiced. Are you really defending his actions?" Alice's face contorted with anger. "Do you have any idea who my husband is?" she shouted. "He's important." "Madam," Captain Evans interrupted firmly, "what is relevant is that you deliberately obstructed a military unit carrying out their duties." PC Stevens stepped forward with his notepad. "Captain, we have multiple witness statements confirming that Mrs. Hargreaves ignored repeated warnings and deliberately blocked the guard's path." Alice's voice echoed off the palace walls as she declared, "This whole place is just a boys' club in fancy uniforms. You can't assault civilians because they are in your precious way." She fumbled with her phone again, her injured hand trembling with rage. "I have the best lawyers in London. Once the media hears about this, guard assaults on innocent visitors will be front-page news." PC Johnson interjected. "Mrs. Hargreaves, every action taken today was entirely lawful. Now, would you prefer to come with us voluntarily to give your statement, or shall we formally arrest you for interfering with military personnel and disturbing the peace?" Gordon stepped forward one last time, his voice calm and sincere. "Madam, sometimes taking responsibility for our actions is the true mark of courage." Clutching her designer bag as if it were a shield, Alice spat. "The only one responsible is that thug in the red uniform." Her sentence trailed off as PC Stevens produced a pair of handcuffs. "You wouldn't dare!" she shouted. Captain Evans spoke one final time, his voice steady and imbued with generations of military discipline. "Your actions today have shown a profound lack of respect, not just for the uniform, but for the principles these guards represent. They are not actors in a tourist show. They are soldiers who have sacrificed much for their country. The ceremony you mock is built on centuries of dedication and service. Alice's voice now carried a note of desperation. "I don't care about your ceremonies," she shouted. "This is assault, battery, and false arrest. My husband's lawyers will make sure of it." P.C. Stevens replied smoothly. "Every action taken today was fully within the law. Now, shall we proceed to the station, or do I need to read you your rights?" Alice looked around wildly, but the onlookers offered no sympathy. The crowd that had witnessed her behavior watched in silence as she was led away, still shouting about lawyers, lawsuits, and social media revenge. Captain Evans then addressed the gathered tourists in a calm, authoritative tone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience during this incident. Please remember that while we welcome visitors to witness our ceremonies, these are not mere performances. Every guard you see here has earned their position through years of dedicated service. They represent the finest traditions of the British military, and we expect visitors to respect both their duty and authority." As the crowd began to disperse, Gordon and Martin exchanged a knowing glance. Some people never learn the difference between true authority and entertainment, Gordon mused quietly. Pride comes before a fall, and sometimes that fall is harder than others. Guard Baxter remained at his post, his bearing perfect, his discipline unshaken. The afternoon sun caught the glint of his brass buttons and polished boots, the same boots that had taught an entitled visitor a lesson about respect she would not soon forget. The palace grounds returned to their usual routine. The ancient stones had witnessed yet another clash between civilian arrogance and military discipline, with the outcome as inevitable as ever. A reminder that some traditions endure not because they are relics of the past, but because they stand for timeless values of duty, honor, and respect. What makes someone think they are above tradition? Respect, and the very institutions that have guarded our civilization for centuries. Perhaps it is the modern age of instant gratification that leads some to believe their personal convenience outweighs long-established rules, or maybe it is the entitled belief that money and status exempt them from rules that apply to everyone else. As we saw today, some lessons come at a higher price than designer outfits and legal fees. The Royal Guards are not actors in a historical reenactment or theme park show. They are highly trained soldiers carrying on a tradition of service that spans generations. Their discipline is not for show, and their authority is not up for negotiation. Next time you visit Buckingham Palace or any historical site, remember that respect is not just about following rules. It is about recognizing that some things are bigger than our personal wants or conveniences. The guard you see today may have served in Afghanistan yesterday and could be deployed tomorrow. The ceremony you witness is not just for tourists. It is a living link to centuries of service and sacrifice. We would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever seen someone treating authority as a joke, as if those in uniform were merely there for entertainment rather than duty? How would you have handled the situation if you were in the crowd? Let us know in the comments below. We read every comment and enjoy hearing your perspectives. If you enjoyed this story, please give us a like to show your support and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new story. See you in the next video.